something rather unpredictable and amazing has been happening for the last month or so, with a virtually forgotten 8-year-old game seeing an unprecedented resurgence, the impact of which has formed a fervent outcry for a continuation of said game's legacy with a new title that could at last capitalize on the boundless potential we all know the series still holds. Star Wars Battlefront 2 had a rough start to say the least, with EA having to take their medicine early on and walk back the ridiculous, gluttonous monetization the game shipped with, but over the following 3 years, they slowly turned shit into gold. Well, the game was always good at its core, it was just covered in a thick layer of microtransaction feces, but by the final update in 2020, DICE had eventually crafted the ultimate Star Wars multiplayer experience. There are plenty of us true believers that have steadily kept those servers alive since DICE ceased their support for the game, but a renaissance of this manner I don't think anyone ever saw coming, as the game has seen its player count records smashed and substantial social media virality, and as people flock to what everyone can at last recognize as an excellent game, the demand for a third title, the elusive Battlefront 3, is ever growing and gaining serious momentum. Just like for a certain plumbing company, the number 3 is seemingly cursed for the Battlefront franchise, as a third installment of the original series was initially cancelled in 2008, and then so many years later, DICE's pitch for their third game was rejected by EA in 2021, reportedly due to licensing costs, and the company's undivided attention turned to ensuring they could thoroughly ruin the Battlefield franchise instead. But peace had long been made with these facts. 2's support was over, and 3 was unlikely to ever happen, so what the hell changed, and how exactly did this rebellion that apparently sprung up out of nowhere gain so much traction seemingly overnight? Well, in terms of a root cause, it's hard to determine, but maybe the right combination of factors occurring at the right time just led to this explosion of discourse and demand. For instance, the increasing staleness of Star Wars was at once swept aside, with the exceptional Andor Season 2 coming to its infallible conclusion. Check out my video on that as well, please and thank you. Also, the increasingly popular Revenge of the Sith turned 20 and became one of the most successful cinematic re-releases of all time. The in-game yearly May 4th event always boosts player counts, and the real-world May 24th viral Resurgence Day broke records. Altogether, the perfect storm that has made something special happen. And as an aside, having mentioned episode 3, I find it interesting how intertwined the Battlefront series is with the iconography of the prequels. Like seriously, all people want from these games is prequel stuff. There's of course the obvious nostalgia infused in those who grew up in that era, just like how I grew up with the originals in the 80s. But apart from that, I think it's because the prequels are the films best suited to the Battlefront experience. We witness battles throughout that trilogy, and of course the Clone Wars, that most closely resemble a game of supremacy or galactic assault, meaning the setting of an all-out galactic war is just where the game is most immersive and indicative of its roots. The mid-2010s was suffocated in nostalgia for the originals, reflected in both the actual movies and the 2015 game, which had zero prequel content at a time where they were still seen as a great embarrassment to be shunned and forgotten. So once the allure of the originals wore off, the 2020s have now very much become the era of ever-increasing prequel nostalgia. So hopefully a third game can come along to capitalize on this excitement before everyone gets sick of it and moves on to reassessing their dislike of the sequels. Honestly, the Clone Wars is where a lot of the potential lies, though obviously I'd still want all the different eras included. In all 3, there's still so many characters, locations, support units, and skins that missed out previously and have yet to be realized, not to mention the transition to television, which has, despite its fluctuating quality, expanded the universe with new opportunities perfect for Battlefront. And I'm also quite okay with there being no campaign, a shortcoming that 2015 was heavily criticized for, but honestly, I don't think it's worth laboring over something that would consume so much time, effort, and capital when I have very little faith in it being any good after the pretty forgettable last one. Maybe they could come up with something cool, but I'd rather they focused on nailing that multiplayer and having sufficient content to sustain a player base at launch. Jesus, look at me, I'm talking like it's coming out next week. The fucker is in reality pretty unlikely to be made from what I understand, so I'm probably wasting my breath. But hey, it's always fun to hold out hope. That is one of the core themes at the heart of all this nonsense anyways. But in this rare, extraordinary case, it's not just a few nutters like me holding out hope. It's become something of a movement with so many fans behind it. It's so obvious how good a third installment could be, and people know it. They can feel the potential it would have. So while everyone, new and experienced players alike, are enjoying Battlefront 2 because it's an excellent underappreciated game, the resounding sentiment is not a resigned satisfaction with what we've got, but instead an ardent demand for more. But an 8-year-old game that's gone 5 years without new content will inevitably mean this resurgence won't last forever. There's no doubt in my mind, however, that the continuing scale of this movement will not have gone unnoticed by the decision makers at EA, and I really hope their reaction has been positive and productive. I know the company isn't in the best spot right now, but this would be a guaranteed hit, right? As long as they can refrain from infesting it with too much of their evil like last time. Obviously, a new Battlefield is on the way next, so even if the impossible has happened and they've sprung into action to greenlight this, it'll be a long time to come in a future far away. But as a community, people have used their voices to demand what we want, nay, what we're owed, after a pretty miserable few years, with the once sacred IP reduced to corporate quota-filling, stale streaming content. And I have no doubt that whatever the result, it will have at least forced those who need to hear it to listen. So keep fighting the good fight, and one day we might get to play the ultimate Star Wars multiplayer game that truly, finally capitalizes on the endless potential this universe provides for shooting and/or swinging lasers online. Make this third game, Dumbos.